Hello and welcome to Caged with Attitude, Cage Bangers for the virtual Motorsport with Attitude show 2021, produced by Orange Race Media. I'm Ed Fahey. In the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be discussing the least glamorous but probably most spectacular oval racing formula, banger racing. Smash 'em, bash 'em, crash 'em, wreck 'em, and sometimes even race them. It's nearly the same as the British Touring Cars. We'll also be revisiting our 2020 Caged Hall of Fame episode, discussing a man who's probably the greatest banger driver of all time, Mr. Jack Overy, and we'll be chatting with yet another racing legend, the one and only Mr. Keith Reynolds. We'll also be paying tribute to probably one of the greatest cars in banger racing, the Ford Granada. We'll also be discussing Star Trek reopening Odsal Stadium in Bradford with Star Trek's Mr. Starter, the very man who dropped the first green flag at Odsal, Mr. Kyle Cooley. But before all that, it's time to introduce my regular broadcast partner on Cage, Full Throttle, who's bravely stepped up beside me here for Motorsport With Attitude, Mr. James Keane. Hello.
Thanks, Ed. It's a pleasure to be alongside you again, and it's great to be doing what we love. And hello to all listening in, and a massive hello especially to those listening to us for the first time through Motorsport With Attitude. It's been a strange year for us broadcasting here at Caged, and just Caged in general, and for all drivers, spectators and anyone involved with motorsport. But we're at the stage now where there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's an exciting time as we're about to return to the tracks.
So, the first item in our special Motorsport With Attitude broadcast. At the end of 2020, a man who does an awful lot of work behind the scenes at Cage, Bryson the Brick Walker, he decided he wants to have the Cage Bangers Hall of Fame. Basically the same as any other Hall of Fame, be it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, any Motorsport Hall of Fame. But one of the first people who was inducted into that Hall of Fame was a man regarded by many as one of the greatest banger drivers of all time, number 617, Mr. Jack Overy. And he was nominated by another of the Cage crew, an official Team Black videographer, Mr. Jake Harris. Let's go and revisit now Jake's induction discussion from the inaugural Caged Hall of Fame 2020.
Our next nomination is another one of the Cage crew. Obviously, we don't really hear from much. Probably he does a lot of work in the background. Jake Harris. Jake, you've got a proper nomination this time, haven't you?
Yeah, I suppose I do really, and that's 617 Jack Overy. Well, it doesn't need any introduction, does he really? Been there, done that, and got the T-shirt. Like we said earlier, greatest of all time. Probably gets overused by the Americans and some other people, but I think that literally sums up Jack. We've seen him race through all different decades, and in sort of racing the way how quickly it advances anyway. We do see some people sort of get left in time and in the shadows and stuff, but Jack seemed to have kept up there throughout all these years and kept on top as well. Obviously got his World Final win under his belt in 2015. And you could easily argue he could have had one and should have had one sooner. And I think he definitely would have had one if it weren't for his mate Shane. But, World Final aside, he's won countless more titles. He's wrecked with the best of them, and he's raced some of the sort of coolest traditional bangers we know. And you could put him in anything and he'll drive it well. In football, they say, can they do it on a cold, rainy Tuesday night at Stoke? In bang racing, it's could you possibly do it at a cold, freezing, wet January at Stanlake? Jack's proven that. But no, I think he's been associated with some good teams, possibly you could argue the best teams around the sport. And yeah, you can keep going on and on. He's definitely been up there for years and years. And I think another cool thing with Jack is he's just keeps quiet and gets on with it and does what he does. What I think's pretty admirable as well, considering his sort of stature and everything in the sport. And yeah, that's my nomination really.
Is that maybe one of the biggest anomalies in the sport, that with all of the titles he's won, he's only got one unlimited world championship to his name? Obviously, that's a big thing for anyone, but it's just with his legend and everything, it's probably one of the strangest little statistical quirks that he hasn't won more world championships, really, given how good he is. I think that just shows how you have to have a bit of luck in this sport.
Yeah, definitely. I think you sort of look at Jack and his sort of racing career, and then you look at it and you go, oh, only one Speedworth world title. Okay, he's had other gold roofs, but no matter what you think of Speedworth, or whether you agree with it's the oldest or best World Final or not. Everyone or majority see it as the best World Final and the one you want to win. And the fact he's only done it once when other people have done it multiple times, you sort of think, he's only won it once. But you say that because it's Jack, and by rights he should have won more. With his ability, he should have won more.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's probably to his credit that it's a surprise that he's only won one World Championship, when winning one World Championship is is big enough for anyone. Just winning one, the fact he's only won one is a compliment.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. You got some other like standout, fantastic drivers in the past that haven't even won one, but because of how long Jack's been serving and how good he's done, it's like, he's only. It sounds bad, but it's the way you just see it. It's like, Jack's is good. He should have had more. He could have had more, but I think that shows his sort of crashing nature as well. The fact he's been warring with Shane Davis for years and years, and neither of them back down, sort of adds to the legacy and shows how good of a driver he is all round, I think.
And
I think that's echoed as well.
Yeah. So I was going to say it was a proper war as well. Like, they used to beat the crap out of each other on the track, but in the pits they'd have a laugh about it. They'd say, "Oh, here, Shane, give us that drive. I need Burr's drive shot off, Shane. Yeah, no problem. There you go. Now it's your turn." But no, like you said, I know it's an overused term, but I mean, he's won something now that he's never won before, which is a Caged Hall of Fame nomination. But no, I mean, he's one of those drivers. You love him or you hate him. Most people love him. Like, it's like I say again. I know we're saying sport and rivalries, but like a lot of teams you don't like, you might absolutely detest the team to the depthness of your soul, but you respect them. So a lot of people will say that about Jack. I don't like him, but I respect him. He's really good at what he does. So, I'd be a fan of his. He makes it look so easy at times. It's not even funny. I mean, see some of the races that he wins and what he's steered around basically to get there. Like, fair enough, he mightn't have hit anything, but he managed to, like, I know I keep saying it on the Cage Virtual Series, he dodged the bullets nicely there, and that's what Jack does. I mean, everything going on around him, he still managed to steer his way through it. So, I mean, that deserves an awful lot of kudos.
Yeah, he's the Matrix and a banger, you could sort of say, with dodging the bullets and all that. But I think, obviously, with me following lads around and that, I was sort of videoing him at his World of Shale win this year. And I'm sort of watching the boring bits he's doing, that necessarily other people I'm watching. And he just makes it look so easy, whether it's just literally doing a simple lap or with no back markers in front of him, or whether he's got back markers in front of him and he's dispatching him. He just makes it look easy. And even when he is hitting stuff, he makes that look easy as well. Sort of to make it look that effortless, I think is one of them things, you either got it or you haven't.
I think the easiest comparison I'd make to Jack Overy lapping people. I recall years ago, Lord rest him, unfortunately, John Lomu, the famous New Zealand rugby player, the way he used to just push people out with one hand to try and tackle them, he literally just tapped them on the shoulder and they were gone. So whatever Overy does is the banger equivalent to that. Bryson, I know you've been around him a long time as well.
Yeah, so just going back to earlier comments about Jack, obviously he's had the Driver of the Year award, Hall of Fame. He's done it for 30 years and is at the top of the game. But going back to that World Final win, I've never heard a reaction to anyone winning the world quite like it. The whole place erupted in delight, more or less. And it was, I think even for Jack, he'll probably admit himself that it was that relief moment. Like, yeah, Jack's done it. He's won that biggest title that everyone views is the biggest title. And rightfully so. It's sort of the icing on the cake, the cherry on top sort of thing. Like, him hitting that is the pinnacle moment, the defining moment of his career, and now he's finally got it. He doesn't really need to prove anything else now. He's won nearly every major title there is to win. He's mixed it with the best of them. The wars with Shane, obviously being part of the squad, cream team back in the day as well, and obviously then Black and establishing them, and as we're seeing in a moment, obviously they done very well and were very popular in the Team of the Year awards without giving much away. His legacy will stay on, so I think it's only right that he is one of the first entries in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry,
definitely.
Jake.
Yeah, definitely. And I've just sort of thought back over. We'll probably have to edit this bit. I've just thought back over what I said, and I've probably said too much about it, only just being the one world final win. But I was trying to emphasise the point of you'd expect more from him, or you'd think he'd win more. But one thing as well, like, is sort of crashing exploits as well. We've seen in later years the Caged Open this year. And the last ever Suffolk Open, real good performances, and of course he was doing it week in, week out at Arena before, years ago, and I think it was 2011, 10 maybe it was. He won the DD points at Mildnor, so he's sort of showing the capability in all classes, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is as well, he's probably one of the most humble guys you'll meet. He doesn't really talk much at all. He'd be the quietest person in the pits. He's just the full package, really. I mean, like you said, he's the old, like, if anyone could wear a shirt that said "Been there, done it, won it," it's him. But we could talk about him a lot. But we'll move on to our next nomination.
And if you enjoyed that discussion, our full Hall of Fame is available on our Cage Bangers website. That's cagebangers.co.uk. There's also a link to our YouTube channel in there too, which is also full enough called Cage Bangers. You can listen back to the full 2020 Hall of Fame episode. And from one Cage Banger 2020 Hall of Famer to another, he's seen as much of a legend in the sport as Jack Overy is, but he's not really won that much, but he's still a legend and we all love him. He's also the honorary Cage President for life. He is Mr. 260, Keith Reynolds, Mr. Rusty. We caught up with him earlier in the week and had to see what Keith had to say. And now on this special Motorsport With Attitude Cage special, we're talking to a proper legend of banger racing. He's never won any major titles. He never has his roof painted gold or silver or Union Jack or a silver stripe or anything like that. He's the ultimate fun racer. He's a legend. He's well known here at Cage as our honorary president for life. It is the one and only Mr. Rusty, Mr. Keith Reynolds.
Good evening.
Well, we're probably going over in the afternoon, Keith, but we recorded this a few days beforehand, so I'll let you out that. But yeah, basically, you're seen as a legend in the pits. Every time you're seen coming in, what's he got? Because it's always going to be something different. Why do you like racing different cars? Any particular reason?
Not really. I didn't really start off to race it. Yeah, but years and years. Well, 1980, 5, 6. You was just happy to race a car that comes along. And sometimes if you keep comparing every single car, and then before you know it, oh, this car wasn't as good as that car, that wasn't as good as this one, and then I just half the probably more than half the thing in bangers is actually, I was always told, stripping the cars out, and I always find it quite interesting to do cars that I haven't done before, which funny enough I did today. Funny enough, a car I've never had. So.
And you going to tell us what it is, or is it a secret?
Nope, I wouldn't tell anybody whether I did it. I said to somebody once that I was going to do a meeting, and circumstances changed. I couldn't do the meeting, and I just got absolutely slated for it. So, and there was a genuine reason why I couldn't do the meeting. So after that, I thought, right, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. Or if you say you're going to race a car at a certain meeting, then for whatever reason the car doesn't happen or whatever, people would, oh, I thought he was going to bring this, I thought he was going to bring that.
It's really strange. We do get quite a lot of that at Cage. Like some people that send us their cars and they really want to show it, but then you'll get a lot of people that do just want to keep that mystery as well for whatever reason, or even if it's just to see the look on people's face when it comes to the pit gate, especially if it's a pre-meeting or a special meeting. You can see the benefits of both, but I do like the fact that some drivers like yourself do like to keep what they've got under wraps until the first time you see it being taken off by your high up.
Yeah, especially if you've got an unusual or one that is going to make people turn their heads and go, cool, blimey, what's that? Or that kind of thing. In fact, I can understand. Like I say, I can understand it from both sides. Some people pay lots and lots of money, so they want maximum exposure. And now there's no, you can't buy a glossy magazine in a month's time and have a look at it. That's what they want, but that's not really I'd like the surprise element, really.
That sounds a very fair point. We're just flicking through the list we were given here by our friends at Northern Bangers. Let's pick a few examples. a Citroen 2CV, a Jensen Interceptor, a more recent BMW 1 Series, a 1960s Chrysler New Yorker last year at the Aldershot meeting, which was amazing. You raced 3 Mark 7 Jags with your 2 boys. The year after, you had 3 Chevy Camaros at Stan Lake. Where do you find them? Like, do they call you, or do people say, "Here, Keith, I've got this," or is it just a case of, you go out looking and you find them?
No, I mean, obviously, if a guy races a certain car, I'm thinking in the BWS now, James Head, he would have a 2-door Mercedes. So the people who don't race 2-door Mercedes think, oh, 2-door Mercedes, right? Oh, we race them. No, James Head, he might give me good money for it or something like that. I mean, pre-eBay internet days were a lot better for me because you made all your contacts, and then people would say, well, I've got this old car. I only race Granadas. I'm not interested in some old Rover or something like that. Do you want to do a deal or do you want to buy it? Obviously, sort of eBay internet kind of blew that out of the water a little bit. Much in the same way these days,
raffles.
Everyone moans about raffles. Everyone moans about raffles. But if you're the guy selling the car, then you're not going to moan about the raffles.
Yeah, you're getting what?
I think
extra,
the biggest thing,
you get an extra 20-30% on the price, maybe sometimes even more. Sometimes.
Exactly. And I think what really annoys people is when people win or enter and have got no intention of racing the car or whatever, and they just it raffles again. I mean, there must be a world record for some car getting raffled about 10 times, I would imagine.
And all that's happening is the extra 30% being added on every time, and then eventually.
Yeah. And then people will go, oh, you can't just buy a car. But then when you can, obviously people want sort of what they're going to get near a raffle money. But yeah, no, I've been lucky enough over the years just to have built up I suppose you could call it a network of people, and there's some old people who used to race years ago, and they still get cars or still in the motor trade, and some of them just like to see me smash them up or whatever. None of them are ever really, ridiculously big money. I'm not, if people want to spend the big money, then fair enough, But you could, the thing with anybody starting or anybody doing it, you should only get what you can afford, So the minute you start buying stuff you can't afford, or pushing the thing, then you're not going to last very long.
Yeah, and we've mentioned that a few times on the main show with yourself, and obviously this is a special going out. We might get some new people listening, but for those who do want to get involved, Keithy, obviously we've mentioned it already. Back to basics. You're probably the brain. I say brain child, but I think you're too experienced for that. Let's say brain father of Back to Basics. So I'd, and that's exactly where that comes into, isn't it? You can go out for sort of for a reasonable amount of money and really find out if Bangers is for you. Do you enjoy it? I mean, Back to Basics is really strong where I marshal Aldershot, and you see there's such a good community of racers and drivers. Everyone gets on really well. And the racing's excellent, probably better than you'll see in a lot of other banger classes sometimes, just because everyone is out there to have a laugh. And the 3-litre Tom Gun Classic, not technically Back to Basics, was pretty much exactly what it was all about, and it was absolutely excellent.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, like Back to Basics, that's the lowest cost entry level formula. And those people who do it are just glad to be doing it. I mean, they go and watch a national banger meeting, and they'll probably go, "Cool, I want that," but it's way out of their budget. They might dabble one foot in the water, have one little go, and the idea of doing the 3-litre meetings was just a sort of stepping stone. So those who could do Back to Basics, who wanted, for want of a better word, a go at a proper banger, could have a little stepping stone. Maybe to just go around and say, well, I've had a banger, I've done a banger. It wasn't for me. Mm-hmm.
That's a very fair point. And I mean, like you said, you've been racing nearly 35 years at this stage. You've been there and you've done it, so you've seen the sport evolve from back in the old kick the window out days, even when you could find cars on the quay. kick out the windows in an A60, bit of seatbelt around the doors, off you went, to the way it is now, where pretty much any car would need like an awful lot more work put into it. So I mean, we can see the point of back to basics. It literally does what it says on the tin. And I mean, you've been at the forefront of that on the previous rookie revolution, as we call it. So the obvious question is, where do you see racing in 10 years?
10 years. I think there will be scope for, I think, all three. I called it 3 divisions of bangers. You've got unlimited, which obviously in 10 years' time, the availability of rear-wheel drive cars is going to be. I don't know, really. In 10 years' time, maybe they're all going to. The difficulty is they've all got aluminium suspension and things like that, and you've got people now who are so skilled they would just make the aluminium bits out of metal and steel. So as much as I wouldn't want to see it, it might end up like those ridiculous American demolition derby cars, where I mean, but the National Bangers is so far away from what it should be. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're brilliant. They're brilliant to watch, but they are just so far away from what they started off as, which is just progress. But I still think that there will be scope for like a starter, a medium, and a pretty much an unlimited class. Always a difficult thing will be your health and safety, and people making rules up that don't understand the racing or have got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's it. And the thing as well, look, fair enough, we've had it so well and we've enjoyed it for so well. But at the same time, like some of the classic car meetings, like, say for Stan Woods, which will be coming very shortly, but isn't he 150 cars booked in? So obviously the amount of cars is still out there. Like, they're still there. They're still probably all stacked up in yards. You've alluded to yourselves that you've a few nice bits and pieces up your sleeve as well. So the stuff is still out there. But we're discussing as well, like, the money's gone up. It's more expensive now. Like, there's obviously more effort gone into it. Like, I mean, you're saying before, one time you picked a car up at 4 o'clock, and by 7 o'clock that same day, and this was a weekday, it wasn't even a weekend, you had the car ready to go. So, I mean, I certainly don't think we're going to get to that anymore. Like, you're hardly going to, the cars these days, all the safety systems, all the electronic systems as well that need to come out before you go racing, because, cars these days, modern cars, they're like egg boxes. They're basically designed to protect the occupants as much as possible. Like, you see massive car crashes these days that say the driver's door, the passenger door will still open, whereas a car designed, say, 30 years ago, it wouldn't. So, we won't go into the whole ethics of it, the reasons behind it. Obviously, an awful more people are alive these days because of it. But it's just the evolution of the car, really. And I mean, you've been at the forefront of the evolution of racing by realizing that, look, cars aren't made of metal anymore. There's an awful lot more work involved in them, or there's too much work involved in them. So let's just make it a bit easier for the new person to come along. So I mean, you've been at the forefront of this. I mean, are you proud of it? Are you happy to say that I'm keeping Banger Racing alive?
No. Like them or not, it's promoters that keep this. Well, I suppose everyone plays a little part of the jigsaw. The drivers can't do it without promoters. Promoters can't do it without drivers. Promoters can't do it without people like me who chuck an idea their way. And none of us can. Well, I suppose none of us could do it without a crowd. But I mean, that's been proved wrong a couple of times lately. Unfortunately, fortunately, all the way we look at it, it has been proved you don't need a crowd. But obviously, a crowd is a massive, massive part of it. I can only imagine in years to come. I mean, I can't see how it carries on now. Where they're going to go. Only certain, you have to have a pass to go in the pits or whatever. And the good thing about oval racing is you can actually meet your heroes. So when I was a little kid and my hero was Jeff Roberts or whatever, you can go and have a chat to them. There's no way you're going to get anywhere near a football player, and even a circuit racing person, you're never going to get anywhere near them for a chat. Where the good thing about the stock car was you can go and meet them, you can have a chat to them, and everything else.
It might be a case. It might be a case where we have to start to compromise. Maybe it would end up being maybe before the meeting, but even then you've got cars moving around for scrutineering and something. It's an element of stock car racing in every formula that everyone will look to fondly, and yeah, like you said, we just don't know at the moment whether that'll be able to continue in the future, but I think it'd be sadly missed all around. I mean, you do have the problem with fans that are in the pits with drivers or mechanics. If they don't listen to you or things like that, you can send them up the box. With fans, it is a bit more difficult to sort of crowd control, but maybe there'll be a compromise way of being able to do it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of the meetings last year, some of the drivers have said, "Oh, it was brilliant, no fans in the pits. When we come back, we didn't have to worry about you put the car on, you could fix it or whatever. There wasn't 10 deep of people watching you pull a car out. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been one of those 10 people watching people pulling cars out, because I think that's part of the racing. But a few drivers have said, "Oh, I don't know, it's quite good." But to me, I think it's the fans, the drivers go together. It's just, unfortunately, you can't put a sign up saying sensible fans only.
and a banger racing track that could thin the numbers.
Well, that's like you're saying, it's the evolution of the sport. I mean, back in the 1960s, Formula One, as in the circuit Formula One rather than brisket, it was like that. If you timed it just right, you could go over to Graham Hill and ask him for his autograph. Obviously, you can't do that now. You have to meet and greets and all that. But I think, we've had it good for a long time, but unfortunately, just circumstances change, reality changes. So, I think what you said will happen eventually. You'll probably get like a pit lane walkabout or a meet the drivers or whatever. So obviously try and push for the more professional side of it as well. But I mean, the amount of people that tuned in to watch the two Speedworld World Finals on speedworld.tv was quite impressive as well. I mean, if you'd have said 10 years ago, you're basically going to get broadcast standard coverage of a meeting, beamed straight into your straight onto your armchair, your big TV or your phone or whatever. I mean, if you said 10 years ago that was going to happen, you'd be laughed at. Whereas now it's happening, and it's proven quite popular too.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard one single bad point about Speedworth TV. I mean, the guys are so professional. I mean, there is a couple of little issues where they go, "Oh, they don't really," they're more the TV guys rather than the fans. But you've got people who work on the shows that are fans.
Yeah.
And you've got people who look at the other side and they're actually more the TV.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely the point, Keith. I think there's an expectation to begin with that there would be a wealth of people that understand banger racing and are trained cameramen at the same time. Now, all that's going to happen is that the people that know about TV are understanding it more and more. The production's getting better and better. Obviously, then you've got so much presenting being done by people like Graham, Andy, our very own Don Brock, which is just sort of it's slowly getting there, enhancing. And I think it's as good as, if not better than, quite a lot of professionally produced and broadcast racing media out there. I think the only thing it misses is things like infographics, but that'd be a nightmare anyway.
Yeah, no. I heard there was they had 4,000 subscribers on the two banger world finals, which is pretty good when you think about it, because the local Aldershot football team have got their own TV thing, and they're on about half that, And the one thing I think Speedworth TV have been good is behind the scenes stuff. Because a lot of people who watch, you go to the racing, they watch, they pay the money, they support the sport, but they don't know. They're unaware of the behind the scenes. I mean, you mentioned earlier that I built a car in a couple of hours years ago. I mean, a national banger now is so much work. So it's like a ridiculous amount of work. I mean, even people in the other formulas don't know. They still look down their noses at bangers if they're hot rod people, until you tell them how much actually people are investing in bangers. I mean, national bangers compared to national hot rods, apart from the actual outlay of the car, the running costs are the same. They're comparable to the same. The banger people are going out and possibly smashing them up.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think everyone gets their kicks in different ways. Because, I mean, I've said it the few times I've raced, which hasn't been enough, unfortunately, but just the rush that you get off the race, and there's nothing like it. So obviously you're very much addicted to that rush over 35 years now. We'll just wrap this up now, and we'll get to the Orca questions. Your two sons, Joey and Jack, both following the old man, legends of the sport. Good attitude, good way of looking at it. But basically, Joey's the entertainer, and Joey's the entertainer, but Jack is the wild one. Were they the same as that when they were kids, or was it different?
When they were kids.
Yeah,
Well,
was
no,
Jack the wild one and was Joey the quiet one?
No, they're both pretty much the same, really. But I mean, Joey's thing when he first started was you got to learn to drive first before you can crash. Where Jack's gone at it the other way, he's crashing first and then learn to drive afterwards. And now they're both pretty decent at both.
Yeah, I know.
You know, all the best drivers can do both, crash and race at the same time. So yeah, they both had a different way of going at it. You know.
I have to ask, how did you feel when Joey was 1/4 of a circuit away from his first gold roof? That must have felt strange.
No, not really. I mean, anybody who's been with me or whatever, I don't get that animated or whatever, because I'm one of these guys who thinks there's always going to be something going wrong, you know. But I mean,
in this case, you were right.
He was corner away from being world champion. Jack and the National Bangers was
second,
you could say he was the same, really.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, as well, they've got age on their side, and they're already so far involved in the sport. You got to think that. I mean, nothing's ever certain in banger racing, but they've got as good a chance as anyone, I think, going forward.
Definitely.
Well, I think banger racing these days, you need so many things to add up, and the way especially National Bangers final is run now, the amount of enemies definitely is a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
you look at some of the past winners and you think, well, there wasn't anybody on the grid who didn't like him. Whereas,
I mean, at least Joey can always say that in Unlimited National Bangers, he won the big one. He is the 2020 Caged Open champion.
Oh, I think he was uncatchable that day. I think he won everything that day.
I know, and when you win a race with Jack Overy, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the worst thing was he had one of my old cars.
So the adage about a workman and his tools can't be applied in this case, then, no?
No. But I mean, again, with every sport or any sport, you pretty much only get out what you put in. And Joey will be there till 11:30, 12 o'clock every single night, doing cars, you know. And what people forget is he races in all three of the banger classes, and the 1600 bangers and the nationals. They take a lot of work to be good at. The 1600s, it's so fine. The tolerances of good and good and okay, you know, to be really good, you know. So yeah, you've got to put the effort. You can't just expect to, you know, people there moaning that he wins a race, but he's doing 4 times the amount of meetings to somebody who just races once a month, you know.
That's it. I mean, every driver down the years, it doesn't matter what formula they race, bangers, Formula 1 stock cars, national hot rods, any motorsport formula, it doesn't matter what it is. They always say you always win the races in the garage, in the workshop, rather than at the track. I think it's never a true word spoken.
Yeah, definitely. There's in the track, you've got to have a bit of luck, obviously, and you've got to be race sharp as well. You know, somebody races 3 times a week, you know, they get and the other thing, when you're racing along, you think, okay, that guy doesn't like that guy, so he's going to take him out. I can nip up the inside of him, or this guy's he doesn't like me, so I better keep my eye out on him. You know, so you've got to be race sharp as well, which a lot of people don't. You know, they just rock up race once in a blue moon and wonder why they're not quite on the pace, and then they start moaning and thinking everyone's cheating.
That might explain my few and far between outings haven't been very good, but I understand exactly what you're saying. But Keith Reynolds, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here, and I mean, you know, you're still regarded very highly among everyone in the pits, the paddock, online. Once again, thanks for giving us a bit of time, and hopefully we can get racing again soon.
Yeah, cheers, Keith. Hopefully see you. Hopefully in a few days. Well, a few weeks' time, I'll be seeing you at Eastbourne for B2B Vans. Then we'll be back on the track again.
Yeah, there's plenty of meetings coming up, definitely.
Yeah, cheers.
And good job too.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much,
Thank you
Keith.
very much.
Much appreciated.
That's okay, no problem.
And thanks again to Keithy, Mr. Keith Reynolds, honorary president for life here at Cage, for taking time out of his very busy schedule to come and speak to us. He's always ready to help out. Makes him a true legend of barrier racing. But now we're moving on to our next segment. It's usually all doom and gloom in motorsport these days. Summer is closing, something's not happening anymore, events are being cancelled. But for a change, we're looking forward to the opening of a stadium. And it's basically a legendary stadium in racing. It's basically the Coliseum of the North, Odsal Stadium in Bradford. So earlier in the week, we caught up with the Mr. Starter, who basically drops the green flag at the start of the race, and he'll be the man doing it at the very first race at Odsal Stadium, Mr. Kyle Cooley of Star Tracks.
Over the past 3 years of the Cage Full Throttle show, we've unfortunately in our news section had to talk about the closure of tracks a lot more than any of us would have liked, including 2 tracks from the Star Tracks promotions within the last year alone. However, one of the very good news stories over the last few months has been the amazing work done in Bradford to restore the Odsal Stadium to its glory as one of the pinnacles of stock car racing.
And joining us for a quick chat today is the man who was sadly part of the flag waving crew at Stoke on that last meeting, but he's going to be waving the very first green flag at the reopened Odsal Stadium in Bradford. He's the Star Tracks Mr. Starter. Hello, Kyle Cooley.
Hello.
We'll be just basically talking about this fantastic news. I mean, an opening of a track is a good thing, but reopening of one of the biggest tracks, basically in the British Isles of oval racing, this is huge. I mean, this is basically the same as a new Ipswich or even a new Wimbledon, dare I say it. But we have a few discussion points lined up here. So, James, in your own time.
Yeah, again, Kyle, thanks for coming on. Obviously, you probably have heard the news a bit earlier than we all did, but especially after losing 2 tracks where you've been the main man on the rostrum towards the end of it, did you think you'd be able to be the man on the rostrum waving green at a new Star Tracks venue opening so soon after that, and such an iconic one at that?
No, to be honest, I didn't. I feel very lucky to be a starter at any tracks. But to be having the chance to be the person to open Odsal is just amazing.
I mean, it's just such a fantastic venue. It is a proper stadium, isn't it? You've got the grandstand, the hospitality boxes, the fact it's going to be a shale track as well. I mean, after losing, including Coventry, after Star Trek's losing 3 massive shale tracks, and with the not being quite as many high quality shale tracks as round as there are tarmacs, it must be. The reopening of Odsal, it's going to be a real sort of jewel in the crown of the sport, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. It's great to have a good track back and get back with good atmosphere as well.
Yeah, and to our regular Cage Bangers listeners, I'm sure, but we'll come on to this in a bit, but as well to have such a well-respected event such as Stan Wood's opening first.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So obviously, Star Tracks is Briscoe, stock car heartland, so Formula 1, Formula 2 and the Minis. But that doesn't mean to say there isn't a great tradition of national buyers in the region as well. Fair enough, the weather at the last Stan Woods meeting wasn't great, but being on the opening bill of events at Bradford, I mean, are you looking forward to the buyers?
Yeah, looking forward to it. The weather weren't great on the last Stan Woods. I was actually working then on the middle. By the end of the meeting, we were soaked, but that's all part of the fun.
Was you sorry, was you on the middle or was you starting at the last Stan Woods? I think you would have been marshalling, wouldn't you?
I was on the middle,
Yeah.
I was clerking.
I was going to say you wouldn't. It's not a meeting you'd want to start because I imagine all you could do is who you're going to give the positions to. Oh, the car that's covered in mud.
Well, yeah, that's one of the points.
Well, that was it. I mean, we always knew that shale and rain don't mix, but unfortunately, Mother Nature conspired against us that weekend. But it was the case of, look, it's the way it goes. There weren't too many people upset. At least the people who were there braved it out. I mean, there were a few people upset on the internet, but that's what they get for not coming. It's all part of the adventure, really, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. You got to experience the bad weather to enjoy the good weather, aren't you?
That's it. That's what it's about, really. As long as you leave smiling one way or the other, because sometimes all you can do is smile.
It's one of those things.
Yeah,
If you're going to be involved in an outdoor sport in the United Kingdom, you've got to take it sometimes. It's going to happen.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I was going to say, it's always a pleasure to have another member of the Orange Army on the show with me, albeit in this case it's more of a cousin from the Orange family, from another ORC promoter. So I have to ask, because I always ask marshals this when they come on the shows, how did you get into marshalling?
Well, I started off from when I was young. I was watching around the track with a set of flags, and my family would always say, when I'm older, that I'll be on there doing it for real, and it happened.
Yeah, I was going to say the amount of people that start. That's exactly how I started. 8 years old, standing behind John Gould, the starter at Birmingham Wheels, with my flags all laid out, trying to copy everything he did. I think, and you see it all the time. You still see it now. All the kids trackside got all their flags out ready, and it's just good to see. I think so many marshals will say that did that as kids, and I think that sort of shows how good the sport is sort of with kids. In the same way that kids that go on to race would have raced in mini stocks or junior rods or something like that, you'll find that the marshals of tomorrow, you could probably guess who they're going to be by the kids trackside with their flags.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I did a few years of racing myself in juniors. Then I did a few like open rods and Star Trek hot rods. But then obviously I wanted to be a marshal and a starter. So in 2018, I did my first day. I've not stopped since.
And so, as we both know, it can be very hard, challenging work. Really, probably have to work a lot harder in those hours than I do during my day job, constantly being on the ball, and it's very hard work. But I mean, it's feeling like nothing else, especially when we leave the track at the end of a meeting and we've had a good meeting. So, if you have any words of advice for anyone that does want to get involved in stock car officiating.
Yeah, it is challenging, but the feeling of it outweighs the challenges. And if anyone wanted to do it, I'd get in touch with your local tracks. It's a great opportunity, great sport to be involved in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, work your way up as well. Obviously, you wouldn't be starting waving the flags and that.
Yeah,
I always put the effort in, you get rewarded.
I always find as well, like in terms of my friends that I spend a lot of time with, a lot of time talking to, you sort of don't realise how quickly the people you work with become a bit like your family, and it's one of the things I can't wait being back at Eastbourne on the 19th for Back to Basic Vans is to see people that have become more than very good friends, almost like my family. So I think the camaraderie and the social side of it as well, that's such a big part of it, as it is with pretty much everything in the sport. But I don't know if you get the same thing I have, Carl, when you go to spectator meeting now. Whenever I go to spectator meeting, I almost, from behind the other side of the catch fence, you sort of want to be back the other side, and you're sort of reacting, you're sort of constantly looking out. You always can't switch it off, can you, once you've been the other side of the catch fence?
Yeah, that's right. I agree with you. You make plenty of friends with other marshals and stuff, and then, as you said, as you go to other tracks, you just want to be on the other side of the fence, doing what you'd normally do elsewhere.
You almost feel naked when you're not doing it. I used to be the same with doing photography, and that's just I wish I was there, or could have got that, or would have seen that one coming, or whatever. So that's what's important. But Stan Wood's 9, episode 9. Who would have thought you got that far? That's one of the biggest national meetings of the year. There's plenty of other great bar meetings coming up. You've the Micro 4 sides, which is the Star Trek's British 1600cc Championship. And of course, big fans around Odsal. So, are there any highlights for you for the year ahead? Or just the case of, look, the last year and a half that we've had, I'm happy to have anything?
Yeah, that's right. I just can't wait to get back. Yeah, we've had a tough year out, so it'll be good just to get back, see everyone, and just crack on.
That's it. I mean, that's all we can do, really. Hopefully it'll stay like that. We won't be all doom-mongering like we were before, which didn't really help matters. Stay positive. That's a message for everyone, really. I know it's getting a lot of us down, but all you can do, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are the good times will return, and then after all of this, you'll appreciate everything that happens a little bit more. If there's a bad meeting, or could have been worse. So what can you do?
Yeah, that's right. Just have to think positive from now.
All you can
Absolutely. And just to finish, we always ask new guests to our show if there's anyone you want to say thanks or give a shout out to. This is your chance.
Yeah, I'd say a big thanks to Steve and Jackie for letting me do what I do, and of course Baz. Without these three people, I doubt if that dream from being a kid stood at the side of the fence would be happening now.
And I think from all of us at Cage, you'd like to say huge congratulations to Steve for, again, the adversity of having 3 of your tracks closed down in such short time to then making this dream alive, and the hard work that's had to go into that. So I think from everyone at Cage, we'd like to say a huge thank you to Steve Reese for all the work he does, not only for Star Tracks, but also for the formulas he's involved with, and also is I don't know if I think most people would know this, is involved in the sport, is also as chair of the ORC. Not always the most popular thing with fans, but as staff we appreciate it, and God knows how much hard work there has to be done to be chair of the ORC.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's put some big effort into the stadium.
Yeah, and big financial risk on his part as well. I mean, people always think, I've seen it before today, and I don't want to go into the controversy of it, but when you see people say the words money-grabbing promoters, we see it all the time as well around Speedworth. I mean, there's no money to be made in stock car racing. Effectively, your promoters are like the custodians of the sport. They're putting themselves at financial risk. They're doing what they can. They're backing it financially where they can, but they're not in it for big money. They're in it just to keep it going, and I think a lot of people forget that sometimes.
You forget too that they're fans just like us at the end.
Absolutely. Okay. I think that's it then, Carl. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I bet you can't wait to be back out there. Nor can I, and I think everyone listening can't wait to be back at a track. So hopefully we'll all be there soon enough. So thank you for coming on. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Not a problem.
Thank you very much, Carl.
Thank you very much.
Now, for our third part of the discussion, we're going back to the 2020 Cage Bangers Hall of Fame, and this was actually my own nomination, and I nominated the Ford Granada. Now, the car itself has been a massive part of banger racing for at least the last 30 years, if not longer. I mean, the Granada itself, be it the Mark 1 or the Mark 2, when we talk about the Mark 1 and the Mark 2, there was the Mark 3 and the Mark 4 Scorpio, but they're not held in quite the same regard as the Mark 1 or the Mark 2. But they've won pretty much every single championship going. World Championship, World Endurance, Figure of 8, all the track championships, all the big money meetings, all the world finals. I mean, for a long time, I think it was only 12 years, it was either a Mark 1 or a Mark 2 Granada. That was the only car that won the world final, whether it be in Wimbledon or Ipswich. I mean, every banger driver that's raced for at least 10 years has raced one of them. I mean, well, why do people race them? They're a very simple car. There's only 2 bolts holding the engine, for example. There's only 4 bolts holding the gearbox mount. There's a single wishbone suspension on them as well, and they're very quick to change the parts on too. And that's one thing that Keith Reynolds mentioned earlier on. A lot of cars these days, they've aluminium wishbones, aluminium parts in the steering, all that. Granadas don't, it's all made out of steel, so there's an awful lot of strength in them as well, and if the parts do get broken, they're easy to replace. The thing is as well, like they're still very fast, and they handle extremely well, but as well as that, they're easy to repair, and if they're not too rusty these days, which unfortunately a lot of them are, they're easy to build too. Like I've helped build for bangers over the years. Granada were so easy to do. The biggest job was really putting a new engine in, and that was a bit really. But a lot of drivers still use them to maximum potential that they always had today. Jack Overy in particular, like watching him sliding around one on shale is short of poetry. It's just amazing to watch. But they're very easy to repair as well. Like the hardcore wreckers use them as long as the racers, they can get absolutely caged. In other words, back wheels nearly up around the driver's seat, the bonnet nearly touching the windscreen, and they'll still be able to pull them out and get them ready for more. Another thing to remember about the Granada is there's so many different variants of the car, like not just saloon or estate. You have hearse, limousine, and there's about so many different variants of limousine and hearse depending on where they were built. You've stretched estates, ambulance, camper, there's even been a few homemade pickups and that. But the other thing about them is as well, they're just so popular still, even 30 years on. Like I know nowadays with the newer cars, they're much stronger, they'll take more abuse. The old Granadas are kind of seen as a bit soft. But if you just put all the Granadas together, you can't beat it. It's still probably the best, some of the best meetings in the last 10 years. It was the All Granada meeting in Arena Essex, and more recently the All Granada meeting in Ringwood. But the thing as well with the older cars is they can take an awful lot of abuse, take an awful lot of punishment as well. Like I was actually at the All Granada meeting in Ringwood. The smells that you got that day are smells that I remember from my early days of Banger racing. You know, burnt clutch, burnt rubber, hot engines, hot gearbox. I mean, some of the newer cars, there's an ECU telling the engine what to do. So half the time in the DDs or whatever, the car will just cut out. So then the car will cool down again and start up. But of course, the older, the V6 and the Pintos, they didn't have that. So this uses distributor and all that just keep going till occasionally the engine will cry enough, but it won't. It's going to just literally keep on going. But the other thing I remember with Overy and Bangers in particular, Ford is actually the leading manufacturer. But it's not just the cars, but the amount of other cars down the years that have had a Ford Granada engine gearbox put into them, purely because it's simple, and a lot of drivers had them too. I mean, you look at some of the big American cars, like big massive Cadillac Fleetwood, you lift up the bonnet, they're buried somewhere down the bottom, just above the front cross member. There's a Ford V6 engine box. You know, that'll be enough to get the car around the oval, get the speed up as well for a few hits. But also, as well as that, the engine is buried well in the engine base. It's not going to get damaged. I think with the distributor cars in Bayern racing on the V6, the Dizzy's actually at the back, so you don't even need much armouring around the front because you'll be hitting with either the front of the car or the engine if you manage to bash it back in hard enough. And the other thing with the V6 engine, that's still the sound of Banger racing, just the roar off it, whether it's a 2.3 or a very rough 2.8 or a 2 litre even, but just the roar, that sound, that's still the sound of Banger racing. A lot of people will say they'll go just to hear the Granada, never mind to see the racing. But it's still a popular car to race, and I've seen some photographs of Banger cars down the years. There's still loads of them. They're still stacked up 3 and 4 high. I mean, it's been like that for nearly 30 years at this stage. They're good cars to race. There's that bit of magic about them. There's just something special I really like about them. And the other thing to remember is not a lot of Banger drivers, they might have destroyed hundreds of them down the years, but you go to their garage, you open up the door, there's an absolutely immaculate Mark 1 or Mark 2 sitting there to be enjoyed on the road. Could even be a coupe, could be a limousine, could even be a hearse. I know a few guys have a hearse on the road car, but it shows that, they've just been destroyed in their thousands down the years of Banger racing, but the Banger drivers still love them, so that's why I nominated the Granada into the Cage 2020 Hall of Fame. And a massive thank you to Dan from DT Videos for that excellent footage, All Granada footage, Mark 1s and Mark 2s from the 2016 Ringwood All Granada Bash. Hopefully we'll be seeing the 2021 version of that very soon.
On the fourth time, and I think it could be a lot louder than that. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah!
And it brings to an end of the Cage with Attitude special. with Cage Bangers in association with Motorsport With Attitude. It only leaves me to say thank you very much to all the organisers and staff involved with Motorsport With Attitude for giving us this opportunity. Hopefully we've got you a bit more interest in banger racing. Don't forget there's plenty of tracks scattered all around the UK. Get online, basically find out when your local track, where your local track is, and when the next fixtures are on. Go and have a look. You might be very pleasantly surprised because it's right in front of your face. With quarter mile racing, you won't miss 1 second of the action. It also leaves me to say thank you very much to our Cage crew, to everyone who's helped worked hard behind the scenes, no less than Mr. James Keane. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you very much, Ed. As always, it's a pleasure to broadcast beside you, and thanks to everyone at Motorsport With Attitude. Thanks to everyone's listening, and I hope, like me, you're excited to get trackside as soon as possible. We're nearly there, guys.
We most certainly are. I mean, the light is very clear at the end of the tunnel. Be another month or two, but hopefully we'll get back to where we were, and hopefully you'll appreciate everything now. To be less naysaying, less moaning, because I mean, the old saying, you don't know what you have until it's gone. For a good while now it was gone, and we all really missed it. So hopefully let's go racing again in 2022. It's going to be some year. Thank you, and we'll see you around the tracks.